a video on mushroom ketchup. Um, so I was watching a video. It's a really interesting guy. Townsend, Stuart Town. Well, no, I don't think it's. He's called Stuart, and his channel's called Townsend, and I think it's actually the place where he is a historian. He's called Townsend, so I don't actually think he's called Stuart Townsend, but it's an interesting channel, and he does like lots of old food and kind of quite cheap peasant food, which I'm fascinated with, like what people used to eat. And then he did this a few days ago, and he's done it a long time ago as well. It was mushroom ketchup. So it basically like an essence of mushroom more than anything else. So not like a ketchup, like a tomato ketchup, more like a flavoured mushroom liquid that you use in cooking and on cooking, a bit like a Worcestershire sauce. So I am fascinated with depth of flavour and complex flavour, because I don't think you can. It's quite a difficult thing to do. It generally takes time and effort to get flavour. But what he was saying and what he was doing, it seemed like with this mushroom ketchup, it seemed like a really kind of quite quick way to get like an umami depth of flavour into things. So I'm quite curious about that. I'm not entirely sure. I believe I've never tried mushroom ketchup. I suppose I should buy some, which I might do for the part of this video next. But anyway, so I was kind of quite curious. So I'm going to have a go, and then we'll give it a taste, and then potentially we'll see if it can be used as an ingredient or like a base level of things to kind of add that depth of flavour, umami, easily. Well, not easily, because we're going to have to make it, aren't we? Which kind of isn't the point of me kind of thinking that. Like, I just don't think there's any easy way of doing things. You know, if you want really good flavours, I don't think there's like an easy shortcut. So yeah, so people kind of ask me how to do things when I'm doing the catering, and they'll ask me. So I was doing macaroni and cheese for a function last week. Someone came the week after and was chatting to me and kind of said it was lovely. How did I make macaroni and cheese? And I told her the recipe and how I made it, and instantly I could see her eyes glazing over, that she thought there was some kind of easy way to do it, whereas it wasn't. You know, macaroni and cheese was delicious because of the onions that I put into the sauce. There is a video. I made it. It's very nice. The amount of cheese and the amount of onions in the sauce, which kind of made it what it was. But I think she just kind of wanted to know some kind of easy, kind of cheap hack, but there isn't. And so I think it's the same with this. I kind of think I don't know how to, without adding things that are expensive or have taken a long time to ferment or develop flavour, adding those into a dish to improve its flavour. I don't think there's an easy kind of way of doing things, but this might be a path towards extra flavour. There is, right? So you can use MSG, monosodium glutamate, in food, and that instantly improves flavour and gives you like more of a depth of flavour. But it's an instant taste, and then kind of disappears kind of quite quickly. Whereas if you think about, if you're a fan of red wine, like I am, a good red wine, you taste it, and then you get different flavours as it hits different taste buds on your palate, and then you get another flavour after you've swallowed the red wine. You get like another flavour. But I'm waffling like I always do, because my videos just aren't about generally me thinking my way through things. So mushroom ketchup. Oh yeah, and then this is another part to it. So last year I made like a brown sauce cheese substitute. So it's basically like an onion brown sauce. So I used onions and vinegar and sugar. I probably put some pepper in, some salt. I can't remember. I really should watch the video. But this is it. It's been in the fridge for a year, and I was kind of thinking that maybe kind of we could use the mushroom ketchup water as a base for other things like this. So it would impart, is that the right word? Even more flavour into something like this onion. Well, it's like an onion ketchup, but it's like an onion brown sauce. It's very nice. But we'll taste it now. So yeah, that tastes like a pickle, like pickled, like a chutney. It's got that kind of flavour to it. But if we were to have used the mushroom ketchup in it, it would have a different depth of flavour and all that kind of stuff. So that's might be something that I kind of do with it. I might make some more of that, but use this liquid as a base. So I have grated. I've used flat mushrooms, and I've just grated them. The recipe that I saw, everyone just kind of scrunches them up, like breaks them up in the hands. I kind of think, well, we might as well grate them. And then, because we're going to want to get as much flavour out of these and liquid out of them as possible, so I think grating is the way to go rather than breaking them up, because we want to get as much liquid out of them as possible. And then we're going to dry the mushrooms and make a mushroom powder as well. So I do like 2 bites of the cherry when it comes to food. You can get as many things out of one thing as possible, even better. So grate those, and then we're going to add some spices. So nothing special, it's kind of what I've got in the cupboard. So, and I've pureed them, ground them up with some salt. So about 2 teaspoons of salt in there, and some kind of spices. So it's like half teaspoon of coriander seeds. We're going to put a bay leaf in. We're going to leave that whole. I like a quarter of a nutmeg went in there. Oh yeah, cut my finger. And then we put a clove in. We put a little bit of star anise. We put about 6 allspice berries in there. Looks like one of those is going off. I'll have to keep an eye on that. And then black pepper, so like half teaspoon of black pepper. And then, so kind of the right season at the moment, so it depends when this video kind of comes out. These are wild garlic seeds. So I planted some wild garlic in the garden, which might have been a mistake in retrospect, because it might take over the garden. But I collected the seeds last year, and these are the seeds. Delicious. So I would use garlic powder, but I've got those garlic seeds. So ground all those up in a spice grinder, and then we're going to combine it all. So oh yeah, and I didn't. I ground the nutmeg in there. I already put the nutmeg in there. Nutmeg's not in there. So that in there. That in there. Scrape out. And then we're going to leave it. The guy said a day in the fridge or somewhere cool for a day. He said that there was lots of different recipes that kind of said sometimes leave it for a week. I'm busy tomorrow, so it's going to be more like 48 hours in the fridge. And we're going to give everything a mix around so the salt gets into everything and starts to draw out that moisture. So just a quick move around. Might get my hands in there to give it a bit of scrunch around. So, because what will happen is the salt will start to draw out the moisture. Looks like it's already starting to do that. I did wash the mushrooms. I don't really want to. Once it's mixed in a little bit, it smells really good. Smells really good. So mixed in, and then what will happen is the salt will start to draw out the moisture, and then everything will start to marinate in the bottom of there. So give it, put a lid on that and put it in the fridge for for 24 hours, well 12 hours, and then I'll have a look at it and give it a mix around once all the liquids start to come out, and then I'll give it a better mix around, and then all the salt will be completely dispersed throughout it once we give it a better mix. But I don't really want to get my hands in there because hands are forever covered in stuff, so I'll put that in there like that, cover that in the fridge. 48 hours, halfway through, or 24 hours, halfway through, I'm going to give it a mix around, make sure everything's mixed together, all the spices are evenly dispersed, same with the salt. We'll see how it turns out. Right, so we've had more than a couple of days, because I was busy. So I've just transferred it into a pan. It smells good, and I've left the bay leaf in, and I'm just going to heat it to cook the mushrooms. So we're going to bring it up to the simmer, and then we're just going to cook it with the lid on for 15 minutes at a simmer, and then that'll mean all the mushrooms are cooked, and the flavours going to combine, and then we'll give it a taste then. We'll give it a taste now. We'll give it a taste now, and then we'll give it a taste then, and we'll kind of see what
what's going on, but there's lots of kind of liquid that's come out of it. Alright, okay. That's interesting. Alright. Let's see how it tastes. Might be a little bit salty actually. Might be a little bit salty. But we'll see how we go. So we'll heat it, cook it, and then taste it again, and then we'll strain it and see what happens. Right, it's been simmering away for 10-15 minutes or so with the lid on. So we've not lost any liquid. It's just designed to cook the mushrooms, and then we can sterilise it if we want, I suppose. If we like it. Right, tastes much better now it's cooked. Now it's cooked. Much nicer. So, too hot to handle. Where's the lid? So it's too hot to handle. Let's put the lid back on and we'll let it cool with the lid on. We don't want to... I suppose leaving the lid on, turning the heat off. Yes, turning the heat off. It's going to carry on cooking for a little bit and cool down and kind of macerate a little bit more. So I think that will improve it even more. It's quite nice already. So we'll see. So we'll let that cool, and then we'll strain it through a cloth and squeeze out. Squeeze. That's me squeezing. Squeeze out all the excess liquid, and then we'll have another taste. See if we're going to reduce it, and see if what we're going to do with the leftover mushroom bits. So it's cool. Oh, we'll just give it a taste. That's pretty nice, is that? Surprisingly nice, if I'm honest. So we need to strain out the solids from the juice, and then I think we're going to concentrate the liquid by reducing it by half. I think we'll see how much. Oops, a bit noisy that, isn't it? We'll see how much liquid we get out first. And then what was it? It was about 1.25 kilos, wasn't it? So that will give us an idea. And I haven't added any liquid to it, so we'll get an idea of what kind of liquid we get. And then if we reduce it down by half, we'll be able to work out a recipe and yield and all that kind of stuff. So you can see, so I mean, obviously you have to use quite a lot of mushrooms. Well, quick wash reducing that. But, so just a squeeze. So that's why we cooled it, so we can just handle it. Like that. There's quite a lot of liquid coming out. And then we're going to dry. Once I've squeezed as much liquid out of these as possible. So what happens is, the outside, you get all the liquid from the outside, but it's still the inside, which is still kind of quite wet. So you just need to move it around, or massage it, and then not get as much liquid out as possible. The more liquid we get out, the more flavour we'll get out. So you can see there's quite a bit, so maybe give it a squeeze, like that. So you don't... The more you squeeze, the more you get out. So it's a case of how much you want to squeeze it. But if you've done the work, you might as well get as much liquid out as possible. And then we'll put the mushrooms on a tray with a bit of baking parchment. I suppose if you had the baking parchment, I always kind of think if we're using metal trays, there's always the risk that the metal will taint the flavour of the whatever we're drying. So I tend to dry things on baking parchment, and then you don't. If something's particularly acidic or something like that, then you're not going to cause any kind of problems or make it taste a bit funny. but that's just about as much liquid as we're going to get out. But also as well, if we're drying something out in the oven, the more liquid we squeeze out of these mushrooms, the less we'll have to dry it in the oven, because we're all really doing is just evaporating off liquid, and if we squeezed most of the liquid out, we won't need to dry it as much. The downside is that we're actually squeezing flavour out of these mushrooms, as well, so the mushrooms aren't going to taste as much because we've squeezed out most of the flavour. You can see how much liquid is in mushrooms, can't you? So give it a squeeze around, squeeze it like that. You don't really, do you need to see this? I think it just goes to show that how much liquid you can get out. That's all we're really doing. My videos tend to be a bit long. I'd probably get a bit bored. No, I don't think I would get a bit bored watching, because I try to put in the videos what I find interesting about videos. So right, that's that'll be quite dry now. So we'll dry that out further in the oven because I'm cooking today. So it's quite dry already, but we'll be able to dry that out further, lay it out flat on a tray, and then we'll be able to turn that into a powder. There's still a bit of flavour in that. So I'll get a tray, I'll wipe my hands, and I'll clean out that pan as well. Right, so we have got 100 and, no, not 100, 1,000 millilitres. We've got 1,300 and about 75 millilitres. So that's quite a good yield actually for that amount of mushrooms. So we know we can reduce it down by about half. Let's just taste it without create myself more washing up. Let's just taste it without the mushrooms in it. It's pretty good, that. Yeah, I suppose we can. We'll reduce it down, and then we'll see if it needs a bit more salt and pepper, that type of thing. So I've just quickly spread these out. Could have done a better job, but we could be there forever. You know, it'll just dry out, and then we'll just we'll go through it all when it's dried out a bit more, just to break it up a little bit more. But the oven's on, so it doesn't matter. Just like that. Then in the oven, 120 degrees, something like that. 100 degrees, 120 degrees, just to dry it out. We won't cook it. It'll just evaporate off any excess moisture that's in there, and then we'll be able to do something with it. Easy peasy, eh? Right, we have reduced. So look how much we reduced it down by. Well, let's taste it first. I reckon by about half. That's really intense, is that? I never would have guessed or imagined that that would be just as intense as that is. That's quite remarkable. So, what volume have we got? That's really intense, is that? That's really, really intense. Oh, we just got a bit of steam. So we've taken it down to about 700 millilitres. So I suppose we could take it down to no, that's about right. No, that's about right. That's about half, is that? Residue in that pan, but not to worry. So let's cool it, and it'll taste. Things taste different as opposed to when they're hot and they're cold. Can't remember why. I didn't know it at one stage in my life, but I've forgotten why. But we just So frozen things tend to, like ice cream tends to be more intense of a flavour because it's frozen. So it was a chef, a really good pastry chef, and he talked about how you needed to compensate for that when you were making ice cream, that the flavour would intensify when it was frozen, so you had to make something, if you're making like a custard based ice cream, it made not too intense because the flavour would intensify as it froze. So let's let that go cold, and then we'll taste it again. We might do a comparison of hot and cold, and then we'll have to think about what we're going to do with it. But that's really interesting. I didn't think that would be so intense. This is very interesting, isn't it? So, well, for me, yes. So we'll see what it's like when it's cold. Right, so, dried out. Well, that's half of it, because I've pureed the other half up. But as you can see, how much that's shrunk. I've just ground it up in the spice grinder into a powder. So I was thinking what I'm going to actually use it for. So, taste it. Bit grainy. That's alright. That's alright. I think I know what I'm going to do with it. I think I'm going to have scrambled eggs for breakfast tomorrow morning. And I think I'm going to use some of this and some of that to make scrambled eggs. I think. But yeah, that's really intense. Yeah, so more intense now it's cooler. So if we were going to freeze it, it would become even more intense. So yeah, so that's really nice. That's really nice. And I wouldn't have thought you've got that depth of flavour from just mushrooms and a few spices. So that's really interesting, because normally to get depth of flavour, and that's got a huge amount of depth of flavour, you really have to age things, or you like, yeah, or age something, or you have to ferment something, or kind of like time or effort or money into something to get maximum amount of flavour out of it. Whereas that's relatively simple to get a like maximum kind of flavour. And if you think about a chicken's like a stock needs to be cooking for hours to maximise the flavour that you get from the stock out of the bones and all the vegetables. But that, relatively easy, relatively quick. So that's interesting, is that, certainly to get that amount of level of umami. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. There'll be some plan for the future. I think, interestingly, potentially, I'll look into fermenting mushrooms, because if you can get that kind of flavour, then you must be able to ferment mushrooms. You must be able to. And the mushrooms have got loads of umami in them, so you would kind of get that. So yeah, I think it's, if you manage to get your hands on lots of mushrooms for like relatively cheap and don't know what to do with them, or a load of mushrooms for free, that works, and that'll sell it to kind of preserve. So yeah, I think those are most of my thoughts. That it's kind of worth doing, you know, if you're not bothered about the cost of the mushrooms. How much would they do? About 80, like a pound for 250 grams, something like that. So it's about five quid for the mushrooms, and a few pence for the spices, which is what I had around. And then you kind of get two things out of it. So that's kind of quite interesting. And I'll cook the eggs tomorrow morning, and that'll be the last part of the video. But that's a success of that. I didn't think it'd be that good. I didn't think it'd be that good, to be honest. I was quite sceptical about it, but there we go. Delicious. A success. Right, scrambled eggs. So, homemade butter from another project. We can be generous with that because it needs using up. And I've already used the pan for something else, so that's fine. Then, gentle heat. Not gonna mix these, I'm gonna do something different with them. That I'm not gonna put any milk in there. I need a container. I can use that. Look out the yolks. Carefully. Like that. Wash my hands. much of that. A little bit more. Then have a. And then we've got the powder. I just did it a bit finer. So that's turned out a lot better. They don't look so good, do they? Eggs back in. That's a better way of doing scrambled eggs. Using the whites as more of a sauce. I'm really sure we're nearly there. Nearly there. Just enough heat just to cook those eggs. You can feel, slightly start to feel consistency change. There we go. That'll do. So eggs with mushrooms works, and you kind of think if truffles as well, truffles with eggs works really well. So this should really work. Get that off there like that. Then a little bit of this powder. That much. All of my fingers. We'll see how this tastes. Oh, lovely. Very nice. Yeah, I should have taken a picture, shouldn't I? Yeah, it works. It's worth doing if you've got lots of mushrooms.